New Jersey Governor Christie is chairman of Donald Trump's transition team. He joins us now exclusively. Governor, it's nice to see you.
Good morning, guys.
Let's talk about this meeting at the White House today. These two guys have a long and bitter history together. What's the dynamic going to be like?
I think it's going to be great. You know, I think you heard from both of them. You heard from the president-elect on Tuesday night that he really wants to bring the country together, recognizes that there's been great divisions, and wants to be a unifying force. And I thought the president's remarks yesterday were very gracious and appropriate. We've heard a lot about the peaceful transfer of power during this election, and I think you'll see that symbolized today, and that's important for the country to see.
How about this as an olive branch? Donald Trump has been one of the major purveyors of the birther movement, set to delegitimize Barack Obama's presidency. Might Donald Trump apologize to the president today at the White House? Would you like to see that?
No, listen, I think that's all past us, Matt. The fact is, and the president said a lot of things. I was at that correspondence dinner, said a lot of things about Donald Trump at that time that clearly was attempting to delegitimize him. That's politics, though. And I think what these two men recognize is that now this is about governing and leading the nation and the world. And they have a lot more important things to talk about than slights, real or perceived, in the past.
So it was all just politics when Donald Trump was making those comments about the president?
Well, everything's in the context of politics, Matt. Doesn't mean that he didn't believe those things or wasn't concerned about them. But you see the difference between when two people are in combat in politics versus when the people have spoken. And Tuesday night, the people spoke. They elected Donald Trump president of the United States. And so now it's time for both Donald and the president to move and turn to a new chapter.
You know, Chairman Reince Priebus was here yesterday. He said something he said before, that the Donald Trump he knows, the one behind closed doors, is so vastly different than the Donald Trump we have seen from that rally stage. Do you agree with that? And do you think that's we're about to see some new side of Donald Trump?
Well, first off, I've been friends with him for 14 years, and so I would say there's a lot of things about him that the public has not yet seen, but I don't think that's unusual for people in public life. I think you hear all the time, whether it was about Al Gore, I used to hear that about the vice president, you hear that about President Obama, and I've been able to have time with him privately too. People do have different sides, but what will happen during a presidency, I believe, is that you'll get much more of an opportunity to see both sides.
Quickly, we saw those protests last night, and I mean, it's just a reminder that half this country, feel very scared and afraid and upset. What do you think President-elect Trump's tone toward them should be? What's his message? What's some outreach he should do?
Well, I think he started that outreach on Tuesday night. It was not a combative speech at all. It wasn't a divisive speech. In fact, it was a unifying speech. And he recognized those folks on Tuesday night, talked about the people who didn't support him, and said, I am committed to being president for all Americans. And that's what he has to do, and that's what he did do on Tuesday.
Paul Ryan said Donald Trump has a mandate. Even though he didn't win the popular vote, he obviously has the White House, the House, and the Senate. Do Republicans have a mandate?
Sure. Absolutely. When you control both houses of Congress and the White House, you not only have a mandate, Matt, you have a huge responsibility. Because now the Republican Party's in charge of the federal government, and we have an obligation to get things done.
Let me ask you about your personal future, either inside or outside of Trump administration. The Bridgegate trial ended last week. A couple of your close associates convicted on all counts. Do you think that event and that trial will cast a long shadow on you if you would like a role in the Trump administration?
No, I think the long shadow was cast well before that. What happened last week with the verdict was that they confirmed what I knew and did in January of 2014, which was back then I said, after 24 hours, it's my view that 3 people are responsible for what happened there. Those 3 people, after 3 years of investigation, Matt, in a trial, the same 3 people I fired in January of 14 were the 3 people who were held responsible by the U.S. Attorney's Office and that jury.
So what role do you want in a Trump administration?
I really
What have you talked about?
We have not talked about anything. It's true that the president-elect was absolutely adamant about not discussing the transition before he was elected.
The reports are he didn't want to jinx it. Is that true?
Well, I think that was part of it, and I think the other part was he wanted to remain focused on what he needed to do, which was winning. And so he said to me back in May when he gave me the job, he said, you focus on getting this ready for me. And he said, and we'll talk on election night. So we spoke on election night, but we didn't speak about me. We spoke about the transition.
Would you want to be chief of staff? Would you want to be attorney
You don't really
general?
think I'm going to...
That's what it's called, a pregnant pause.
Would you want to be attorney general?
You really don't think I'm answering any of these questions, do you? You know me better than that. The answer is I am not committed to doing anything in a new administration or not. You know, the bottom line is that I have a job to do to help get the administration ready. If there's some role for me that I want to do and that the president-elect wants me to do, you know, we've known each other for 14 years. We'll talk about it. You know, maybe it's host of the Today Show, Matt. Who knows? You've been around
What's
here.
your timetable?
You've been around here a long time. You know, we'll go over the contract later. We'll see when you're out of here.
That's one job the president doesn't appoint.
I understand that, but maybe we could work something out. You know, Savannah, wouldn't be bad. I'm a very nice guy, Savannah. We'd have a lot of fun sitting next to each other.
We'll do a screening interview later. Let me ask you quickly.
Good news for me.
Trump's adult children have been a huge part of this campaign. Could you see him appointing one of his adult children either to a cabinet post or to a senior position within the administration, or does he think, no, that's nepotism, not going there?
I don't listen. I don't know. I haven't spoken to the president-elect about that, but my sense is that Donald's children, who are huge parts of running the business, intend to run the business. They'll always have an influence with their dad. He will always turn to them for advice and counsel, as all of us do when our children get older. But I think that their intent, from what I've heard from them, is that they're focused on running the business, because the guy who did run the business has now got a new job.
10 seconds left. Donald Trump praised Hillary Clinton in his speech, but in the previous weeks he said he was going to lock her up and appoint a prosecutor, special prosecutor. Has he dropped that?
Listen, I haven't spoken to him about that, but what I'll tell you is they had an enormously gracious conversation with each other on Tuesday night. The secretary was very gracious to Donald, to the president-elect, and the president-elect has been incredibly gracious to her. Again, politics are over now. People have spoken. Time to move to uniting the country.
People wanted her to be locked up. I mean, those are his constituents.
Listen, the people get to speak through their vote. And they voted for Donald Trump to be the president of the United States, and it's now his job, and I'm confident he will, bring the country together.
Governor Christie, do you have an alarm clck?
Yes, I do.
Just saying, it's a part of this job.
No problem.
You're going to love Halloween here. You're going to love that.
Listen, I mean I can look stranger, Matt? Is that what you're talking about? That'd be good. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.